Okay, so Black Myth Wukong came out a few months ago, so this video is probably coming out way later than I anticipated, but I did beat the entirety of the game. And if you couldn't tell already, I'm Asian. And so when I first heard about this game a few months before it was released, I knew that I had to play it. I mean, it's basically within my blood to play this game, and if I don't, I'll probably be a disappointment to every single one of my ancestors. While growing up, Wukong was always one of the things that I was enamored with. I remember watching the Journey to the West cartoon, that really old one, and I remember watching a bunch of really old Chinese movies about Wukong. Those films and shows probably don't hold up to today's standards, but as a kid, I didn't really mind them because I liked Wukong enough as a character to just watch the show. I don't know how relatable this might be to you, but my mom used to watch these shows about like ancient China, and I would just sit along and watch it with her. This game sort of brought me back to those days, despite it obviously not being super historically accurate. Despite being Chinese, I never actually read Journey to the West, nor do I actually know that much lore about Wukong. I mean, I knew the very basic stuff, the very surface level things, and understood some of the references in the game, but a lot of the things that the game showed me was just as new for me as it would have been for anyone else. I obviously knew who Zhuba Jie was and was very excited when I finally got my Jinggu Ban, but aside from the very obvious things, everything else was very new and interesting to me. And even still, as I was doing research for this video, I found so many new things that I didn't even know about. Okay, and I don't know how accurate this might be, but if you were to look at the achievements on Steam, I only have about 58% of all achievements unlocked. And that means that I probably ended up skipping an insane amount of bosses and locations that I just never got to see. Yet, even still, there was still so much to learn about. And maybe one day I will go back and revisit the game to try and experience everything that I did miss. I think one of the things that this game does really well is within its depiction of Chinese heritage. It's reassuring to know that even in today's media, Chinese art and culture is still appreciated. For a very long time, as far as I'm aware, a lot of media's depiction of East Asia was primarily Japanese and Korean. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but I do believe it is fair to say that they are a lot more mainstream than China. Even games made by Chinese companies usually depict a lot of Western and or Japanese culture. So this game was refreshing in the sense that now we have something more closely related to home, something that I can connect more to. And I don't think it's fair to talk about this game without talking about the bosses that the game has to offer. I think one of the most difficult and fun boss has definitely got to go to Great Sage. The boss is a perfect encapsulation of what it was like to fight Prime Wukong. Gosh, the first time that he takes your gourd or grabs your staff is so fucking cool. And I think it's fair to say that Wukong didn't want to win that fight. It was like he was telling you, the Destined One, that no matter what you do, you will never truly be the original Wukong. That even in his death, he still remains to be the OG and as the Unforgotten. But he tests you to see if you are worthy enough to inherit the title. And once you prove that you are, he lets you win.
Hey, stop. He's gonna kill. He just took my shit. Nah.
Let's be honest, if Wukong wanted to win, he would have. But he didn't. And I think the final fight is a great reminder that even though our monkey now technically possesses the memories and basically everything of Wukong, that he would never really be him. Throughout the entirety of the game, at least for me, I was led to believe that the whole entire purpose of the quest that we were going on was so that we can fully resurrect Wukong. That once we get all 6 relics, everything will go back to how it was. But that's not the case. He is meant to take over the mantle of Wukong, but he isn't meant to be him. Even with the original memories of Wukong, he was never meant to fill that shoe. The entire point of the quest that we go on is so that Wukong can be free of the headband, of the quartz. Of course, that only happens if you beat Erlang for the true ending, but it's the true ending, so that's what I'm going to be referring to. And on the topic of Erlang, I might as well talk about him. This fight was also very cool. Most people rank him either number 1 or number 2 as the most difficult boss. And I think he was one of the more unique and or different bosses because he was one of the bosses which you can't really use your transformations against. And he introduced a new shield mechanic that made him like significantly tankier and harder to stagger. After you beat his first phase, you do become this really big stone monkey and you just start beating up those 4 guys that we saw at the beginning of the game. I think it's a really nice way to tie up everything. It's sort of like we saw these guys at the very beginning of the game and now we finally get to fight them towards the end. And so the whole point of fighting Erlang was for the true ending, so that you can watch the cinematic that plays at the very end. And I gotta say, the cinematics in this game is genuinely so beautiful. From chapters 1 to 6, we see an array of different art styles and mediums. And the music that accompanied these cutscenes always hits the mark for the story that it was trying to tell. From the first chapter's depiction of ego and the desire to appear more powerful and of higher status, which eventually leads to the burning of the temple, to the second one's depiction of humans in comparison to Yaoguais and Buddhas or whatnot, and their inability to coexist with each other, not because of differing ideologies or beliefs, but rather the fear of what the other could do. Also, on a side note, the chapter 2 cinematic was done in stop motion, and like stop motion is always a win, so that was really cool. The third chapter depicts human nature and their greed, how humans are only capable of doing what benefits them in the moment, which eventually leads to their downfall as time progresses. And the way that the people were animated as they destroyed and ripped their gods' body to try and get as much wealth and money as possible was disgusting, but it gets their point across so much. And the fourth chapter's depiction of the ability to love someone despite one's physical attributes. Even though Ba Jie does become a pig, he is still appreciated and loved for by the Spider Lady. The fifth chapter showcases Wukong after the fight that we see at the beginning of the game. And as he's dying, we get to see Wukong realize the errors of his actions, that this whole time, Wukong was fighting for the betterment of their kind. And in the sixth, or secret ending, we see our monkey, the Destined One, learn about the past of Wukong, and in turn gain all the memories of him. It is with these memories that allows him to be free. The Destined One learns about the meaning of the headband and so is able to be free from it. Wukong is now free from the quartz, yet he had to die in order to achieve that. And I just want to talk about the music used in the very last cutscene. It's a version of the very old Journey to the West show, and it's fucking beautiful. It's so nostalgic because man, do I remember watching this when I was a kid.